Monday, August 5. Clean hands or clean heart. Read Mark chapter 7, verses 14 to 18. What did Jesus mean by the riddle in Mark 7, verse 15? Mark 7, beginning at verse 14. Again Jesus called the crowd to him and said, "Listen to me, everyone, and understand this. Nothing outside a person can defile them by going into them. Rather, it is what comes out of a person that defiles them." After he had left the crowd and entered the house, his disciples asked him about this parable. "Are you so dull?" he asked. "Don't you see that nothing that enters a person from the outside can defile them? For it doesn't go into their heart, but into their stomach, and then out of the body." Jesus' words in this passage have been a conundrum for many as they pondered their relationship to the teachings of Leviticus 11 regarding clean and unclean foods. Is Jesus doing away with such distinctions? Are Seventh-day Adventists mistaken in teaching that church members who eat meat are to eat it only from the clean animal list? First, it would be odd for Jesus suddenly to dismiss Mosaic instruction in Mark 7:14-19 when he had just offended Moses against tradition in Mark 7 verses 6 to 13. Second, the very tradition that the Pharisees were promoting does not have a basis in Old Testament teachings. The food laws, in contrast, do. Third, what Mark 7:19 means when it says that Jesus cleanses all food is not that the food laws are abolished, but instead that the tradition of touch contamination that the Pharisees had made was invalid. This, for example, is that false notion that if you could be contaminated by coming in contact with Gentiles, then you also could be contaminated through contact with food that they had touched. Read Mark chapter 7, verses 20 to 23. What did Jesus say causes contamination of a person? Beginning at verse 20, he went on, "What comes out of a person is what defiles them. For it is from within, out of a person's heart, that evil thoughts come: sexual immorality, theft, murder, adultery, greed, malice, deceit, lewdness, envy, slander, arrogance, and folly. All these evils come from inside and defile a person." In Mark 7:19, Jesus notes that food does not go into the heart but into the stomach and then passes out through the intestinal tract. But in Mark 7:21-23, he notes that evil comes from inside the heart, from the centre of who a person is. He presents a list of vices that start from evil thoughts but then end in evil actions. When the reference to the fifth commandment in Mark 7:10 is included with the vice list, every commandment of the second table of the Decalogue is there. Further, Jesus refers to vain worship in Mark 7:7, the breaking of what is at the heart of the first four commands of the Decalogue. Thus, Jesus stands as a defender of the law of God throughout this passage. And so to finish today, you might have the right theology, but who fully and ultimately has your heart? This lesson was read by Dr. Percy Harrold for Christian Services for the Blind. Sponsored by the Sabbath School Department and distributed through Hope Channel Australia, this podcast is also redistributed by Hope Channel Germany, Christian Record Services for the Blind. It is also available on SoundCloud and through multiple podcast distributors, including Apple iTunes. And you can listen and watch at the same time on YouTube. Remember, God is always faithful.